There's something profound that happens when we truly understand what inner fire actually is. Not the surface level understanding most people have, but the deeper truth that changes everything. What I'm about to share might feel uncomfortable at first, then liberating, and finally, transformative. Most people think they've lost their passion, their drive, their sense of purpose. They look at their lives and wonder where the spark went when everything started feeling so heavy, so routine, so disconnected from who they used to be. But what if I told you that your inner fire never left? What if it's still burning just as brightly as it ever was, but it's been covered by layers of expectations, obligations, and other people's definitions of what your life should look like? The truth is, your inner fire isn't something you need to find or create or manufacture. It's something you need to remember, to uncover, to reconnect with. It's been there all along, waiting patiently beneath the surface, ready to illuminate your path the moment you give it permission to emerge. Stay with me, because what we're going to explore together isn't just about feeling more passionate or motivated. It's about coming home to yourself in a way that makes everything else in your life feel more alive, more meaningful, more authentically yours. By the end of our time together, you'll understand why reconnecting with your inner fire isn't just about personal fulfillment. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Have you noticed how the harder you try to feel passionate about your life, the more distant that passion seems to become? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on trying to manufacture enthusiasm for things that don't truly resonate with our soul. Picture this. You wake up Monday morning and the week stretches ahead of you like a long, familiar corridor. You know exactly what each day will bring, the same meetings, the same conversations, the same routines. You go through the motions competently, maybe even successfully, but there's a hollowness underneath it all. You find yourself thinking, is this really what my life is supposed to feel like? Maybe you've tried to reignite your passion by changing jobs, starting new hobbies, or setting bigger goals. Maybe you've read countless self-help books, attended motivational seminars, or tried to force yourself to feel excited about things that look good on paper. But despite all your efforts, that deep sense of aliveness, that feeling of being truly engaged with your life remains elusive. You're not broken, and you're not alone. This disconnection from your inner fire is one of the most common experiences of modern life. We've been conditioned to believe that passion is something external, a career to find, a relationship to pursue, an achievement to unlock. We've been taught to look for fulfillment in accomplishments, recognition, and the approval of others. But here's what's really happening when you feel disconnected from your inner fire. You've been living according to someone else's blueprint for your life. Maybe it's your parents' expectations, society's definitions of success, or your own younger self's ideas about what would make you happy. Somewhere along the way, you learn to value security over authenticity, approval over alignment, and productivity over presence. Think about a campfire that's been covered with ash. The fire isn't gone, it's still burning underneath, waiting for the right conditions to flame up again. All it needs is for someone to gently brush away the ash and give it some oxygen. Your inner fire works the same way. It's not missing, it's just been covered by layers of should-dos, have-tos, and supposed-tos. The deeper truth is that your inner fire is inseparable from your authentic self. It's the energy that emerges naturally when you're aligned with your true values, when you're expressing your genuine gifts, when you're living in a way that honors who you really are. It's not something you have to create or earn, it's something you remember. Yet we live in a culture that often requires us to dim our authentic selves to fit in, to succeed, to be loved. We learn to suppress the parts of ourselves that feel too intense, too different, too much. We develop elaborate strategies for being who we think we should be instead of who we actually are. The disconnection from your inner fire isn't a personal failing, it's a natural consequence of trying to live someone else's life in your own body. It's what happens when you've been so focused on external validation that you've forgotten to check in with your internal compass. Let me tell you about Elena, a 42-year-old marketing executive who had achieved everything she thought she wanted. Corner office, six-figure salary, respect from her colleagues, and a lifestyle that looked impressive from the outside. But every morning, she had to talk herself into getting out of bed. Every project felt like pushing water uphill. Every success felt hollow. Elena had been passionate once. In college, she'd stayed up all night working on creative projects, lost in the flow of bringing ideas to life. She'd felt electric with possibility, alive with purpose. But somewhere in the pursuit of practical success, that electricity had dimmed to barely a flicker. She tried everything she could think of to reignite her passion. She took a sabbatical and traveled to exotic locations, hoping a change of scenery would spark something. She enrolled in weekend workshops on finding your purpose. She even considered completely changing careers, maybe becoming a teacher or starting her own business. Nothing worked. If anything, the pressure to feel passionate made her feel more disconnected than ever. Then Elena met Marcus, an older gentleman who worked as a night janitor in her building. While everyone else rushed past him without a second glance, Elena found herself stopping to chat during her late-night work sessions. There was something about Marcus that she couldn't quite identify, a lightness, a presence, and aliveness that seemed to emanate from him despite his humble circumstances. One evening, Elena was working late again, feeling particularly disconnected and frustrated with her life. Marcus knocked on her office door and asked if she was okay. Something about his genuine concern broke through her professional facade, and she found herself telling him about her struggle to feel passionate about anything. Marcus listened quietly, then said something that surprised her. "When was the last time you paid attention to what made you come alive as a child?" The question caught Elena off guard. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had asked her about her childhood interests, let alone suggested they might be relevant to her adult life. "I used to make up stories," Elena said slowly, surprised by the memory. "I would create entire worlds in my imagination and spend hours developing the characters and their adventures. I felt like I was channeling something bigger than myself." Marcus smiled. "And when was the last time you told a story?" Elena realized with a shock that she hadn't engaged her imagination creatively in years. Her work involved marketing strategies and campaign development, but it was all analytical, data-driven, focused on manipulation rather than inspiration. "What if," Marcus suggested gently, "your inner fire isn't gone? What if it's just been waiting for you to remember what originally lit it up?" That conversation changed everything for Elena. Not immediately, and not in the dramatic way she'd been expecting, but slowly she started paying attention to the moments when she felt most alive. She noticed that she lit up when brainstorming creative solutions to problems. She felt energized when mentoring younger colleagues. She found herself naturally gravitating toward projects that involved storytelling and human connection. Elena didn't quit her job or make any radical external changes. Instead, she began subtly shifting how she approached her existing work. She started volunteering to lead the projects that excited her. She began incorporating more creative elements into her campaigns. She started a blog where she could explore ideas that mattered to her. 6 months later, Elena's colleagues began commenting on her renewed energy and creativity. A year later, she was promoted to head of creative strategy, a role that hadn't existed before but was created specifically to harness her unique combination of strategic thinking and creative vision. But the real transformation wasn't in her career advancement, it was in how she felt about her life. Elena had learned that reconnecting with your inner fire isn't about finding the perfect external circumstances. It's about remembering who you are underneath all the layers of who you think you should be. Marcus had shown her something profound. Your inner fire isn't fueled by achievements or recognition. It's fueled by authenticity, by the courage to honor what genuinely moves you, by the willingness to let your true self emerge even in imperfect circumstances. This story reveals the counterintuitive truth about inner fire. It's not something you pursue, it's something you uncover. It's not about finding the right external situation, it's about bringing your authentic self to whatever situation you're in. Here's what transforms everything about reconnecting with your inner fire. It's not hiding in some future version of your life. It's buried beneath your current one, waiting to be remembered and expressed. The secret isn't changing your circumstances, it's changing your relationship with who you are within those circumstances. Most people think they need to find their passion, as if it's a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered in some external location. They believe that once they find the right career, relationship, or lifestyle, their inner fire will naturally ignite. But this approach keeps them forever searching, forever unsatisfied, forever convinced that fulfillment exists somewhere other than where they are. The profound shift happens when you realize that your inner fire isn't a destination, it's a way of being. It's not something you achieve, it's something you remember. It's not about what you do, it's about how you bring yourself to what you do. Think about the people you know who seem naturally passionate and alive. Notice that their fire isn't dependent on perfect circumstances. They can find something engaging in almost any situation because they've learned to connect with the part of themselves that's inherently curious, creative, and alive. While most people wait for inspiration to strike from the outside, true inner fire emerges from the inside out. It comes from the courage to be authentically yourself, to honor your genuine interests and values, to express your unique perspective regardless of whether it fits conventional expectations. Here's the deeper truth. Your inner fire is actually your life force energy expressing itself through your authentic interests, values, and gifts. When you're disconnected from your inner fire, you're disconnected from yourself. When you reconnect with who you really are, the fire rekindles automatically. This is why external changes alone rarely restore inner fire. You can change jobs, move to new cities, start new relationships, but if you bring the same disconnected version of yourself to these new circumstances, you'll eventually feel the same emptiness you were trying to escape. The transformation happens when you stop trying to find yourself in external achievements and start remembering yourself in present moments. When you pay attention to what genuinely interests you, what naturally energizes you, what feels aligned with your deepest values. Your inner fire isn't a feeling you have to manufacture. It's a natural state that emerges when you remove the barriers to being yourself. Those barriers might be other people's expectations, your own limiting beliefs, fear of judgment, or simply the habit of prioritizing external validation over internal alignment. Consider how a river flows. It doesn't struggle or force its way downhill. It finds the natural path that allows its essential nature to express itself. When obstacles block its flow, the water doesn't stop being water. It finds a way around, over, or through the obstacle while maintaining its essential flowing nature. Your inner fire works the same way. It doesn't disappear when circumstances become challenging. It finds new ways to express itself. The key is remembering that you are the fire, not the circumstances that either support or challenge its expression. The first foundation is developing the ability to distinguish between what genuinely energizes you and what you think should energize you. This requires honest self-observation without judgment, allowing yourself to notice what naturally draws your attention and interest. Start by paying attention to your energy throughout the day. Notice when you feel most alive, most engaged, most like yourself. These moments often happen when you're not trying to be passionate. They emerge naturally when you're absorbed in something that resonates with your authentic nature. Practice what I call passion archaeology, excavating your genuine interests from beneath years of conditioning. Remember what fascinated you as a child before you learned to be practical. Notice what you find yourself reading about, thinking about, or talking about when no one is requiring you to be interested. Create space for honest self-reflection without the pressure to immediately act on what you discover. Sometimes we resist reconnecting with our authentic interests because we're afraid they're not practical or valuable. Allow yourself to simply notice and appreciate what moves you without immediately trying to monetize or optimize it. Learn to distinguish between excitement that comes from external validation and excitement that comes from internal alignment. External excitement often feels frantic or anxious, while internal excitement feels grounded and sustainable. The second foundation is finding ways to express your authentic self within your current circumstances, rather than waiting for perfect conditions to emerge. This means bringing more of who you really are to whatever you're already doing. Start small by incorporating elements of what genuinely interests you into your existing responsibilities. If you're passionate about storytelling, find ways to include narrative elements in your presentations. If you love problem solving, volunteer for projects that challenge you creatively. Practice expressing your authentic perspective in conversations, meetings, and relationships. Many people dim their inner fire by constantly filtering themselves to say what they think others want to hear. Begin sharing your genuine thoughts and ideas, even when they differ from popular opinion. Create outlets for your authentic expression outside of your primary responsibilities. This might be writing, creating art, volunteering for causes you care about, or simply having deeper conversations with people who matter to you. Remember that authentic expression isn't about being dramatic or forcing others to pay attention to you. It's about honoring your genuine interests, values, and perspectives by allowing them to influence how you show up in the world. The third foundation is learning to access your inner fire through presence rather than future-focused achievement. Your life force energy is always available in this moment, but most people miss it because they're focused on past regrets or future goals. Develop practices that bring you into direct contact with your aliveness right now. This might be spending time in nature, engaging in physical movement, creating something with your hands, or simply paying full attention to whatever you're doing. Notice that your inner fire isn't a reward for achieving certain goals. It's a natural state that emerges when you're fully present and engaged with life as it is. This doesn't mean becoming complacent about growth and change. It means finding the aliveness that's available right now. Practice bringing full presence to ordinary activities. When you're cooking, really cook. When you're listening to someone, really listen. When you're walking, really walk. Presence transforms mundane activities into opportunities for aliveness. Learn to see challenges and obstacles as opportunities to engage more deeply with life, rather than reasons to disconnect from your fire. Some people only feel alive during peak experiences, but sustainable inner fire comes from finding engagement in all of life's experiences. The fourth foundation is aligning your daily choices with your deepest values, recognizing that inner fire emerges naturally when your actions reflect what truly matters to you. This isn't about perfect alignment, but about conscious movement in the direction of authenticity. Identify your core values by paying attention to what energizes you and what depletes you. Notice that you feel most alive when you're acting in accordance with what you genuinely believe in, and most disconnected when you're compromising those values for external rewards. Make small daily choices that honor your values, even when no one is watching. These micro-alignments accumulate into a life that feels increasingly authentic and alive. Choose how you spend your time, attention, and energy based on what matters to you rather than what's expected of you. Practice saying no to opportunities that don't align with your values, even when they seem beneficial on the surface. Every yes to something that doesn't truly resonate is a no to something that might kindle your fire. Create boundaries that protect your authentic self from constant external demands. This might mean limiting time with people who drain your energy, reducing consumption of media that doesn't inspire you, or creating sacred time for activities that restore your connection to yourself. The journey back to your inner fire always begins with remembering who you were before the world told you who you should be. This isn't about regression or abandoning adult responsibilities. It's about reclaiming the essential qualities that made you feel most alive and authentic. Your childhood self often holds keys to your authentic nature that your adult self has forgotten. Children naturally follow their interests, express themselves honestly, and engage with life from a place of curiosity rather than obligation. Spend time remembering what you loved as a child, not just as hobbies, but as ways of being. Were you naturally creative, adventurous, nurturing, analytical, or something else? These core qualities are still part of you, waiting to be integrated into your adult life. Notice how your childhood interests might translate into adult expressions. If you loved building things as a child, you might find fire in creating systems, developing projects, or solving complex problems. If you were drawn to storytelling, you might feel alive when communicating ideas, teaching others, or creating content. Pay attention to the moments when you feel most like your essential self. Often, these happen when you're engaged in activities that connect you with your natural gifts and interests, when you're around people who appreciate your authentic nature, or when you're facing challenges that call forth your inherent strengths. Everyone has natural gifts, things that come easily to them, that they enjoy doing, and that create value for others. Often, your inner fire is connected to expressing and developing these gifts rather than trying to force yourself to excel in areas that don't naturally resonate. Notice what people often ask for your help with. What do friends and colleagues naturally turn to you for? These patterns often point toward your natural gifts and can be clues about where your inner fire wants to express itself.
Pay attention to activities that feel effortless even when they're challenging. When you're using your natural gifts, difficult tasks often feel engaging rather than draining. Time might pass quickly, and you might find yourself naturally thinking about creative solutions and improvements. Remember that natural gifts aren't always dramatic or obvious. They might be subtle abilities like helping others feel comfortable, seeing patterns others miss, or naturally creating harmony in group situations. Honor these quieter gifts as much as more visible talents. Your inner fire has its own natural rhythm and pattern. Some people feel most alive in the morning, others late at night. Some are energized by solitude, others by connection. Some thrive on variety, others on depth and consistency. Track your energy patterns over several weeks. Notice when you feel most alive, creative, and engaged. Notice what activities, environments, and types of interaction energize you versus what drains you. This information helps you structure your life to support rather than suppress your natural fire. Recognize that your energy patterns might be different from cultural norms or other people's expectations. Honor your authentic rhythms even when they don't fit conventional schedules or popular approaches to productivity and success. Learn to distinguish between tiredness that comes from meaningful engagement and exhaustion that comes from misalignment. When you're connected to your inner fire, even challenging work often leaves you feeling tired but satisfied rather than depleted and resentful. Reconnecting with your inner fire is ultimately a practice of remembering who you are beneath all the layers of who you've learned to be. This remembering happens through consistent attention to your authentic nature and gradual realignment of your life with what genuinely matters to you. Develop a practice of regularly checking in with yourself throughout the day. Ask simple questions. How do I feel right now? What would feel most authentic in this moment? What would honor my true self in this situation? These check-ins aren't about making dramatic changes every time you feel disconnected. They're about maintaining awareness of your authentic state and making small adjustments when possible. Sometimes just noticing that you're feeling disconnected is enough to begin the process of reconnection. Create transition rituals that help you reconnect with yourself between activities. This might be taking 3 conscious breaths, stepping outside for a moment, or simply pausing to remember your deeper intentions. Practice bringing more of your authentic self to routine activities. Instead of going through the motions unconsciously, ask yourself how you can engage with each task in a way that feels more aligned with who you really are. Most people have a creative aspect to their nature that wants to express itself, even if they don't consider themselves artistic. Creativity isn't just about making art. It's about bringing something new into existence, whether that's a solution to a problem, a way of organizing information, or a fresh perspective on an old situation. Find small ways to exercise your creativity regularly. This might be writing in a journal, taking photographs, cooking experimental meals, or simply approaching familiar problems from new angles. The goal isn't to create masterpieces, but to keep your creative fire burning. Notice that creativity often emerges when you're not forcing it. Some of your best ideas might come during walks, showers, or other relaxed activities. Honor these natural creative rhythms rather than trying to force inspiration on a schedule.
Share your creative expressions with others when it feels authentic to do so. This doesn't mean seeking approval or validation, but allowing your unique perspective to contribute to conversations, projects, or communities in whatever way feels natural. Begin making decisions based on alignment with your values rather than external expectations or immediate convenience. This practice gradually shifts your life in the direction of authenticity and naturally kindles your inner fire. When facing choices, ask yourself, which option honors what matters most to me? Which choice would I make if I were being completely honest about my priorities? Which path feels most aligned with who I want to become? Start with small decisions where the stakes are relatively low. Choose what to eat based on what your body wants rather than what you think you should eat. Choose how to spend your free time based on what genuinely interests you rather than what seems productive or impressive. Notice that value-aligned decisions often feel both exciting and slightly scary. They tend to move you toward authenticity and growth, which can feel uncertain even when it's ultimately fulfilling. Learn to manage your energy in service of your authentic self rather than just your external obligations. This means protecting time and space for activities that restore your connection to your inner fire. Set boundaries around your time and attention that prioritize what genuinely matters to you. This might mean saying no to social obligations that drain you, limiting news consumption that disturbs your peace, or protecting time for activities that restore your aliveness. Create environments that support your authentic nature. This might be organizing your living space in a way that reflects your values, surrounding yourself with art or objects that inspire you, or spending time in natural settings that restore your sense of connection. Practice energy investment rather than energy management. Instead of trying to conserve energy for obligations that don't inspire you, invest your energy in activities and relationships that naturally energize you. Often, this approach actually increases your overall energy rather than depleting it. As you begin reconnecting with your inner fire, you'll likely encounter both internal and external resistance. Understanding these obstacles and having strategies to work with them is essential for sustaining your journey toward authenticity. Many people experience internal resistance when they begin expressing their authentic selves more fully. This resistance often comes from old fears about safety, belonging, and approval that developed when you learned to suppress parts of yourself to fit in. Notice when you feel resistance to expressing your authentic interests or perspectives. Often this resistance manifests as thoughts like, "That's not practical," "People will think I'm weird," or "I should focus on more important things." Recognize these as learned responses rather than absolute truths. Practice compassion for the parts of yourself that learn to hide for good reasons. Your authentic self might have been criticized, dismissed, or misunderstood in the past, leading to protective patterns that made sense at the time but no longer serve you.
Gradually expand your comfort zone around authentic expression rather than forcing dramatic changes all at once. Small steps toward authenticity often feel more sustainable and create less internal resistance than trying to transform everything overnight. As you reconnect with your inner fire, you might encounter resistance from people who are used to you showing up in particular ways. Some people might feel uncomfortable with your increased authenticity, especially if it challenges their own patterns of conformity. Remember that other people's discomfort with your authenticity is information about them, not about you. Your job isn't to manage other people's feelings about your growth, but to honor your own path while remaining compassionate toward others. Practice staying connected to your inner compass even when facing external pressure to conform. This doesn't mean becoming rigid or defensive, but maintaining awareness of what feels true for you while navigating social dynamics skillfully. Create supportive relationships with people who appreciate and encourage your authentic self. Surround yourself with friends, mentors, or communities that celebrate growth and authenticity rather than demanding conformity. Reconnecting with your inner fire often involves uncertainty about where the path might lead. Your authentic self might want to make changes that feel risky or unclear, and this can trigger fear about security and stability. Distinguish between fear that's warning you about genuine danger and fear that's simply resistance to growth and change. Most fears about expressing authenticity are based on imagined worst-case scenarios rather than realistic assessments of actual risks. Take small steps toward authenticity while maintaining stability in other areas of your life. You don't have to revolutionize everything at once. You can gradually align your life with your values while making practical adjustments along the way. Remember that living inauthentically also involves risks. The risk of reaching the end of your life having never expressed your true self. The risk of chronic dissatisfaction and regret. The risk of depression and anxiety that often accompany prolonged disconnection from your authentic nature. Many people struggle with perfectionism when reconnecting with their inner fire, wanting to express themselves flawlessly or achieve dramatic results immediately. This perfectionism often leads to paralysis rather than progress. Remember that authenticity is about being real, not being perfect. Your inner fire is expressed through your genuine engagement with life, not through flawless performance or impressive achievements. Avoid comparing your internal experience with other people's external expressions. Someone else's path to authenticity might look completely different from yours, and that's exactly as it should be. Focus on your own journey rather than measuring yourself against others. Practice expressing yourself imperfectly rather than waiting for the perfect opportunity or the perfect level of skill. Your authentic self is allowed to be messy, uncertain, and still learning. In fact, this vulnerability often makes your expression more genuine and relatable. The ultimate goal of reconnecting with your inner fire isn't to escape your current life, but to transform how you experience and engage with it. This integration happens gradually as you bring more authenticity to your existing circumstances while making conscious adjustments when possible. Even if your current job isn't your dream career, you can often find ways to express your authentic self within your professional responsibilities. Look for opportunities to use your natural gifts, contribute your unique perspective, or approach familiar tasks in ways that feel more aligned with your values. Practice bringing your whole self to professional interactions rather than wearing a completely different persona at work. This doesn't mean oversharing personal information, but allowing your genuine personality, interests, and values to influence how you communicate and collaborate. Seek out projects and responsibilities that naturally engage your interests and strengths. Volunteer for assignments that excite you, suggest innovations that align with your values, or find ways to mentor others if teaching feels authentic to you. Remember that professional success often comes more easily when you're expressing your authentic gifts rather than trying to be someone you're not. Many people find that as they become more genuine at work, their performance and satisfaction improve significantly. Authentic relationships are both a result of and a catalyst for reconnecting with your inner fire. As you become more genuine, you naturally attract people who appreciate your true self, while potentially growing apart from relationships based on false personas. Practice expressing your authentic thoughts, feelings, and interests in your relationships. Start with people who feel safe and supportive, gradually expanding your comfort zone around authentic expression. Notice that some relationships might feel strained as you become more authentic, especially if they were based on mutual people-pleasing or shared avoidance of difficult truths. This is often a natural part of growth rather than a sign that you're doing something wrong. Seek out new connections with people who share your authentic interests and values. Join groups, attend events, or engage in activities that align with who you're becoming rather than who you used to be. Your living space can either support or suppress your connection to your inner fire. Create an environment that reflects your authentic values, interests, and aesthetic preferences rather than what you think is expected or impressive. Surround yourself with objects, colors, and arrangements that genuinely appeal to you. This might mean displaying art that moves you, organizing your space in a way that feels natural, or incorporating elements from nature if that resonates with your spirit. Create sacred spaces or rituals in your home that support your connection to your authentic self. This might be a reading corner, a creative workspace, a meditation area, or simply a spot where you can sit quietly and reconnect with yourself. Notice how different environments affect your energy and authenticity. Some spaces might naturally support your inner fire, while others feel constraining or artificial. Use this awareness to make choices about where you spend time when possible. Reconnecting with your inner fire often involves honoring your natural rhythms rather than forcing yourself to maintain constant high energy. Just as nature has seasons of expansion and contraction, your inner fire has its own cycles. Pay attention to times when your inner fire naturally wants to expand and express itself versus times when it wants to turn inward for reflection and restoration. Honor both phases rather than trying to maintain constant external activity. Use quiet periods not as evidence that you've lost your fire, but as opportunities to go deeper into understanding yourself and clarifying what matters most to you. Sometimes the most important work happens during apparent dormancy. Create rituals that mark transitions between different phases of your inner work. This might be journaling at the change of seasons, taking solo retreats when you need reflection, or celebrating milestones in your journey toward authenticity. Your inner fire isn't a constant flame that burns at the same intensity all the time. It's more like a living fire that sometimes roars with passionate expression and sometimes burns quietly as steady warmth. Learning to honor and work with these natural rhythms is part of maintaining a sustainable connection to your authentic self. The journey of reconnecting with your inner fire isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been underneath all the layers of conditioning, expectation, and compromise. It's about coming home to yourself and discovering that home was never actually lost, just temporarily forgotten. As you practice the foundations we've explored, as you navigate the obstacles with compassion and patience, as you integrate authenticity into your daily life, you'll discover that your inner fire was never really gone. It was just waiting for you to remember that you are the fire, you are the light, you are the aliveness that you've been seeking outside yourself. This remembering changes everything, not because your external circumstances necessarily transform overnight, but because the person engaging with those circumstances becomes more alive, more genuine, more connected to the source of energy that makes everything else meaningful. Your inner fire is calling you home to yourself. The only question is whether you're ready to answer that call and begin the most important journey you'll ever take, the journey back to who you really are.